Have you ever faced something so painful that you looked up and asked God, "Why me?" If you've ever felt forgotten, rejected, or abandoned, if you've ever sat in silence, wondering if God still hears you, you're not alone. There was once a young man named Joseph. He had dreams, God-given dreams, but before those dreams come true, he went through betrayal, slavery, prison, and deep, painful waiting. And yet, God never left him. This is his story, and maybe it's your story too. Welcome to Hope and Purpose. Joseph was 17 years old, the favorite son of his father, Jacob. His father loved him more than his brothers, and he gave Joseph a richly ornamented robe. But this love stirred up hatred in the hearts of his brothers. They couldn't speak a kind word to him. Joseph began having dreams, strange, powerful dreams. In one dream, he and his brothers were binding sheaves of grain in the field. Suddenly, his sheaf stood upright, while theirs gathered around and bowed down to it. In another dream, the sun, the moon, and 11 stars were bowing down to him. When he told his brothers these dreams, their hatred only grew. They mocked him. "Do you really think you will rule over us?" Even his father questioned what the dreams meant, but he kept them in mind. Joseph didn't fully understand what God was showing him. One day, Joseph's father sent him to check on his brothers in the fields near Shechem. But when his brothers saw him coming from a distance, their hatred boiled over. They said to each other, "Here comes that dreamer. Let's kill him and see what becomes of his dreams." Reuben, the eldest, tried to save him. "Don't kill him," he said. "Throw him into this pit." He planned to rescue Joseph later. So, they stripped off his robe, and they threw him into a dry, empty pit. No water, no food, no mercy. As Joseph sat in the darkness, confused and terrified, his brothers sat nearby and ate a meal. Then a caravan of traders passed by, on their way to Egypt, and instead of killing him, they sold Joseph for 20 pieces of silver. Their own brother, betrayed, sold like a slave. Joseph was taken away, his hands bound, his heart broken, and his life forever changed. But even in this moment of betrayal, God was with him. Joseph arrived in Egypt, alone, betrayed, and enslaved in a foreign land. He was sold to Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, the captain of the guard. And yet, the Lord was with Joseph, even in slavery. God's favor was upon him. Everything Joseph did, he did with excellence. And soon Potiphar saw that God's hand was on this young Hebrew. Joseph was entrusted with everything in the household. He was faithful, honest, and diligent. But then, another test. Potiphar's wife tried to seduce him. Day after day, she tempted him. But Joseph refused. He said, "How can I do this wicked thing and sin against God?" He stood for righteousness and paid the price. And once again, Joseph was thrown down, this time into prison. But even there, in the darkness of a dungeon, God was still with him. Even in pain, he served others. To prisoners, Pharaoh's cupbearer and baker had troubling dreams. And Joseph, with wisdom from God, interpreted them correctly. He asked the cupbearer, "Remember me when you're restored?" But the cupbearer forgot, and Joseph remained in prison for 2 more years, silent, unseen, forgotten by man, but not by God. Then one night, Pharaoh had a dream no one could understand. None of his magicians or wise men could interpret it. That's when the cupbearer finally remembered Joseph. "I know someone," a young Hebrew in prison. "He interpreted my dream, and it came true." Joseph was summoned from the prison to the palace. He shaved, changed his clothes, and stood before Pharaoh. Pharaoh said, "I've heard you can interpret dreams." But Joseph replied, "I cannot, but God can. He will give Pharaoh the answer he seeks." With courage and clarity, Joseph interpreted the dream. 7 years of abundance, followed by 7 years of severe famine. And then, boldly, Joseph gave Pharaoh a solution. Store up food during the years of plenty, so the land may survive during the famine. Pharaoh was amazed. Can we find anyone like this man, one in whom is the Spirit of God? And in that moment, Joseph's life changed. From prisoner to prime minister, second in command over all of Egypt. He was 30 years old. 13 years had passed since he was sold by his brothers. 13 years of pain, silence, tests, and waiting. But now, he was walking in purpose, not just for himself, but to save others. And when the famine spread across the land, his brothers came to Egypt, desperate for food. They bowed before him, just as in the dream. They didn't recognize him, but Joseph recognized them, and in that moment, he could have taken revenge, but instead, he forgave them. He wept and embraced them. He said, "Do not be upset or blame yourselves, because you sold me here. It was really God who sent me ahead of you, to save people's lives. God sent me ahead of you, to rescue you in this amazing way, and to make sure that you and your descendants survive. So, it was not really you who sent me here, but God." Joseph's story is not just a tale of one man's rise from the pit to the palace. It is a reminder that nothing in our lives is wasted. Joseph's dreams didn't die in the pit. His faith didn't crumble in the prison. His purpose was never lost, because God was with him every step of the way. And just like Joseph, you might be walking through a season of difficulty right now. But here's the truth. God is using every moment of your struggle to shape you for something greater. When you're in your darkest moments, it's easy to ask, "Why me, God?" But maybe the question we need to ask is, "What do you want to teach me, Lord?" You'll see how every step, every tear, every heartache was part of His plan to bring you to your destiny. And like Joseph, you'll be able to look back and say, "You meant evil against me, but God meant it for good." If you're in the waiting, if you feel like your dreams are slipping away, know this: your story is not over. God is with you, and He's preparing you for something greater. Thank you for watching Hope and Purpose. Remember, your dream is still alive. No matter how impossible it may seem, stay faithful, stay strong, and never forget that God has a purpose for you, even when you can't see it yet. Amen.